And also, if the director could come on up of this wonderful feature that we saw.
Oh, she's not here.
Oh,
I'm here and.
oh, you were in the. Oh, you were in this. Okay, forgive me. All right. Okay. Again, any questions? You can possibly think of favorite color, what movie they're doing next, whatever. I'm open to suggestions. That's what this is for. I saw a hand in the back. You're just waving. Oh, yeah. I guess I could. Okay.
This question is for Alex. Was this how you came out, or is that someone you know, or?
So was this how I came out to my family?
Yeah, or anyone else you know? Is that a true story?
So it's actually kind of like based on like a conglomeration of different people that I dated in the city. Being gay within the Asian community is still kind of like taboo. And so I've dated numerous people who were not out to their families, and it was sort of about how that put a strain on our relationship, like one being out and one not. And I thought that that sort of a character was really interesting because they know what they want and they know what kind of a person they are, but they're not really sure how to hold on to it or how to get to where they want to go. And I just really wanted to, originally it was more about myself, but then I realized that I was less interesting of a character. So I kind of like switched it around, and I thought it was way more interesting to kind of focus on that sort of a person, so yeah.
Anyway, I have to go first. Yes?
Was it always going to be a silent, with the music of course, was it always supposed to be that non-vocal presence?
Yes, and I would love to say it was this really ingenious decision to not have dialogue, but with animation it's really hard to do lip syncs. And it also meant I didn't have to hire actors, but it obviously turned out, I mean, I'm much happier with how it turned out without actual scripts, and you know, my composers were really, really amazing. I think I lucked out finding them. We literally met them at a party by accident. They weren't even supposed to be there, they were crashing it, and they really helped give voices to our characters. So even though it wasn't really done for an artistic reason, I'm really glad with how it came out.
Yeah.
Compliments to you both and congratulations. A quick question for Ben. The movie, I liked the dichotomy between the two moms, you know, the one that had come across a lot earlier. And I was curious about your mom, because she still is struggling, you know, the last face I have of her, she's still struggling with that, and I'm just wondering how that's working. It's coming along.
My mom is like one of my best friends now, and you know, actually my dad is as well. We've come a long way since this film started and even finished, and I think, yeah, I'm just really blessed to say that both of my parents have evolved a lot since the beginning of my journey.
I have a question to Ben. Great film, by the way, and I love the whole story. Super. Now, I saw in the film that you had a lot of scars on your arm from automutilation. What would you tell children who are coming in the ER with these automutilation?
Oh man, you know, when I look at the scars on my arm, it really feels like somebody else put them there, because it was such a different and dark time in my life. And to people who are going through, you know, the struggle of depression and dealing with that behavior, I would just beg them to be compassionate with themselves and to talk to people who will understand what they're going through, and to try and find help, because none of that ever really did anything good for me, you know. And I think the only the only good thing that came out of that behavior was the fact that I can relate to people who are going through it now, and I can say like, hey, you know, I've abstained from doing that, and I found new and beautiful ways to cope with my depression that don't involve hurting myself, because we shouldn't hold ourselves responsible for the things that we're going through and the struggles that we inherited as human beings born on this planet into this society. You know, it's not your responsibility to carry that weight.
Then would it have been helpful for you to watch a film like that?
It would have changed my life. You know, I didn't even know, I didn't have examples of trans people available to me until I really sought out that information. And then even then, I mean, the only ones that it's kind of a Jerry Springer representation was what was available to me. So it wasn't something that I could look at and say, yeah, that's me and I'm gonna be okay. It was like, oh God, I don't want that to be me. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
So again, great film. Actually, both your films were awesome. This is for Ben. How did this start? Clearly, a lot of this was like your postings on YouTube and things. But when did the filmmaker contact you, and how did that start? And how long did it take?
This film, you know, was one of the most like synchronistic. The events leading up to it and me meeting the director was just kind of a really serendipitous occasion. I had met Joe at a young people's sobriety conference, and I knew of him before I met him, and so I was like, you look so familiar, I swear I've seen your face. And he was like, I'm in a band called Coyote Grace, and I was totally starstruck, and he's like, oh my God, I totally know who this guy is. And he invited me to open for him at a music show at his place in Sacramento, and Shalise was a fan of his, and she was there with his camera. And she kind of had this vision of telling this story about a young trans person finding their voice through music before she met me. And then she met me and she was like, do you want to be a part of my film project? And she didn't say, do you want to be a part of my feature-length film that's going to be on PBS next year? And I was like, yeah, totally, that sounds great, because I think I felt like it was my responsibility to my loving and beautiful queer community to do my part. And I would, I hope that this film is a good contribution to the conversation surrounding human rights and civil rights and our natural God-given rights to be happy and to be free.
Alrighty, what a second earlier.
Just a question about just the whole filming process. What was it like to be followed around for that period of time? With a camera always there filming everything?
It was, in the beginning, I felt a lot of pressure to like only say things that were profound. And I got over that pretty quickly because obviously that's like not the way that it works. But initially I felt a little bit awkward, and I just kind of learned to not really pretend that she wasn't there, because I could never really do that, but I was around my friends, and I just tried to get in this zone of being comfortable and being authentic, and remembering that I wasn't a part of the post-production process at all, so I didn't edit this film, and so I just had to trust and have faith that Shalise was going to do a good job with this story, and that she wasn't going to make me look bad. And I had lots of conversations with her about what I didn't want to be in the film and what I was okay with being in the film, and kind of just, I chose to have faith in the process, and once I made that commitment, I felt a little bit less awkward in front of the camera. But it was kind of weird when we would go out in public. I really didn't like going out in public with a camera crew, because I felt like it attracted all this attention to me, and people thought it was like, I don't know, we were in Florida, and I think people thought it was like spring break, like I had this camera crew with me, and my friend and I were like walking on the beach all like you know, wrapped up really tightly, and everybody was jumping in the camera shots trying to get their, you know, moment of fame or whatever, I don't know, but yeah, so sometimes it was really awkward, but you know, when you have good friends around, it makes it a little bit easier.
All right.
I've got a question for both of you, obviously since you have the mic. I'm wondering how Joe is doing, if you're at liberty to discuss that with his struggle that we saw in the movie.
Yeah, Joe is, he's really open about his journey with addiction, and he talks a lot about it on his blog. You can find both of our blogs through the realboymovie.com website. But I just saw him and he's doing great. He's been working on a musical. He's writing the music for a musical that's about a Civil War era, a trans person named Albert Cashier, who was female-bodied but ended up fighting in the war and collecting a pension, and nobody really knew until he was hit by a car and went to the hospital, and then it became this big deal that Albert Cashier was, you know, assigned female at birth, and they put him in a mental hospital for the rest of his life, and he ended up dying because, I think this is so righteous, but people always go, oh, but he ended up dying because he clipped his gown. They made him wear a dress, and he clipped his gown into pants when he was in his 90s and tripped over it and ended up dying. But again, I think that's really righteous.
And then my question for Arrival is, I kind of was taken to some like Miyazaki films or Studio Ghibli, and I'm just wondering if that inspired your project at all.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of like the scenes when the character is back at home, like the countryside scenes, were definitely inspired by like Miyazaki films, and but a lot. I feel like I think I was more inspired by this director named Satoshi Kon, if any of you know him. He's really well known for like his manipulation of time, and with like short film, and specifically what I wanted to do, you have to figure out a way to condense a shitload of stuff into like 5 minutes. I mean, obviously I did a little bit more than 5 minutes, but I thought that was something to really try to like hone in on, and like, you know, trying to get this really dramatic story across and like actually make you care about the characters, and I don't know, like in 20 minutes or so. So I focused a lot on the editing as well, but the backgrounds are definitely, I referenced a lot of, you know, like Ghibli movies, and yeah. Thank you for noticing.